not what I
Don't
wanted to
edit
start
that
off
out.
with. Not what I wanted to start off
Oh, but it's
with.
beautiful. I liked it.
Shut up. Okay. What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to our Mighty Morphin recap. And this is. Well, I just said it.
Da-da-da-da.
I am
You
your
did.
host, Chris, otherwise known as Megas957, and I am here with my friend, Kelly. And
Ew.
today we
And
are.
like,
Oh, sorry. Did you want to do a bit?
no, that was it. I'm good. Go on.
Okay. So today we are going to go ahead and talk about what was the episode we were doing? Teamwork.
Uh, oh yeah.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1, Episode 3, Teamwork. So basically, the rundown of this was Kimberly and Trini were gathering signatures to close down a nearby dump site while trying to convince, the others to work as a team a little bit better. And, yeah, I gotta say, this was a very interesting one for me because I actually did not see this episode when I was a kid.
Really?
Well,
What?
you have to remember that by the time I was actually old enough to remember things, Power Rangers was already running its reruns of the season. So,
Um.
this is from the very beginning. I've not actually watched a lot of the series like from start to finish, so
Mm.
this was a bit of a new experience, but at the same time it wasn't because I did try to give this series a watch through before. I just never finished it, so
Mm.
yeah.
I feel that.
And this one was definitely an interesting take on it. Wouldn't you say so, Kelly?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of like similar shows where they have this one I can tell is kind of a life lesson kind of one. They tend to have a lot of those. I can tell. That kind of caters to the younger audiences, and it's pointing out global warming, pointing out pollution, all those things that I've talked about in my high school and like all my educational experience growing up. So this is kind of like a reminder of even back then they were talking about this and that they made a show surrounding that issue, which I appreciated that they did that.
No. Yeah, I mean, this kind of topic it's not new, but at the same time, it's still a relevant thing to talk about. Pollution, try to make sure that places are trying to words are not my thing tonight. But trying to keep things at a balance so it's not overdoing it, because when we look at the dump site that they went to, it was, yeah, it's nasty.
Mm.
I gotta say, it's like probably a lot worse, or maybe above the standard. Maybe there
The
was
sad part is not much has changed since then.
maybe it might
Not
have
so
gotten a
long.
little worse, but that's besides the
Yeah.
point. There's a lot of OSHA violations.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really cool to see that, it brought back a lot of memories for both of us, because we talked about that stuff in high school. And of course,
Mm.
when you're leading that stuff, you kind of want your friends to be there with you, which Trini and Kimberly tried to do for uh this part of the episode. They wanted Jason, Zach, and Billy to be there, but each of them had their excuse of doing their own thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of standard. Most kids have friends like that. It's like, oh yeah, we want to support you, but then
It's also like common that I've experienced where someone says something like, "Oh, come support this cause, come support against global warming," and then people sign the papers, do all of that, and they do like the hash. Like nowadays, it's like hashtag I support this, and then they don't actually support them, and they just kind of say it. So
yeah,
kind of illustrated that, where they were just saying, "Oh, I support you, but I would rather do this, but I would rather use that for my time instead of actually doing what you're saying, like doing the action of, for example, what they were doing, handing out pamphlets, talking about it, going up to like other people talking about it,
Yeah.
creating that movement."
And of course,
So
you know,
it's,
doing the same
yeah,
thing that they were trying to do is like, you know, show this petition to show the dump that they need to clean up their act, or they're going to try to get people to shut it down,
yeah.
which still sounds like a bad idea because, you know, you kind of need a dump, but at the same time, it's understandable. But let's talk about um, the boys.
Yeah.
Um, Jason and Billy had a completely understandable thing, you know.
Mhm.
Jason, he has his karate classes to teach, and Billy, he's the president of the science fair,
Yeah.
of the science fairs. So he needs
Mhm.
to, you know, they both need to be there because they need to teach their students, and they also need to organize those science fairs.
Yeah.
So you know, that's a responsibility that they cannot shirk, and you know
Mhm.
that's completely understandable. Zach, on the other hand,
Yeah.
um, you know, it's really funny because when I first saw this, I thought Zach was just coming up with something completely out in the left field just to say, "Oh, I don't really want to go." And then, you know, the next thing we see Zach, he actually is there because Alpha did actually call him over to
Mhm.
teach him something. But
Teach them damn thing. And it was kind of like,
it was
really,
more or
that was
less,
important.
yeah, it was just so Alpha could go ahead and learn how to dance,
Yeah.
which I still think is actually kind of funny that, you know, Robot wants to learn how to dance.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how this robot's trying to like get in with the times, as you can tell. And so he's trying to connect with the Rangers in their timeline, which I was like, oh, I appreciate that they have that
Uh,
want. The robot has that want to grow
It's so
into,
it's so weird to see a robot with a personality sometimes.
yeah.
I mean, you know, that's the thing. Alpha sometimes rubs people the wrong way because he tends to be, you know, a bit of a
Over,
worrier. You know, he
mm,
worries about things a lot, and you know,
I mean, the lines he says is also very cringy. I can't. I don't know when he tries to speak like of the kid, like I don't know
ay
how
ay
he
ay ay
said.
ay, Dudette's in trouble, Dudette's in trouble.
Yeah, that I'm just like, oh no, 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 no. It's kind of like how your parents try to like be cool and like say slang words, and you're just like, no, just stop, no, no, no.
Yeah.
So that kind of triggered in my mind. I'm like, oh my god, this reminds me of my parents, and they try to say cool.
Well, it's Alpha. You know, that's part of his charm.
Yeah, it's part of his character.
And you know, we're gonna be stuck with Alpha for a while. So, you know. But the one thing that I was also really kind of curious about was today's monster, the mighty Minotaur.
Mm,
Um, this I gotta say was really interesting because, for you know, again, this is mostly a little fun fact if you've seen the Japanese version, the
mm,
Sentai version of this. If I remember correctly, this monster actually did not fight the Zords. So you know, this monster never met the Zords. So it's really cool how they use the editing to try and keep it so that he never actually, like, it's very rare for you to see the monster and the Zords like in the same shot. Or
mm,
what is that I'm trying to say? It's not. He never fought the Megazord. Sorry, I just remember that he
mm.
actually did fight the Zords, but they never combined. So if
Oh,
anything, yeah, you know, this monster is one of the few monsters that never fought the Megazord.
mm.
but I will say it's really interesting that um, this was the introduction to the power weapons, which
Yeah.
they combine to make. I forget the name of it. I think it's the Power Blaster. I
Looked
don't know.
like a blaster.
Uh, well, in the Sentai version, they call it the Howling Cannon. So,
Mm.
but this is the early days of Power Rangers. Everything was the Power something. So I don't know if this is like the Power
Uh,
Blaster or whatever, because they also have the little guns that are also called the Power Blasters. So
I was like getting to that point where I was curious because they morph into, that whole robot. What is that one called again?
it's
Like
not morphing. They morph to
uh,
get into the suits. That's summoning the
they morph
Zords.
into summoning the Zorg. Sorry, they said morph with the weapons, but then, or did they say morph with the
No,
weapons or not?
they
No. Oh.
okay. Let's clear this up because we're only in episode 3, but
Yeah.
in order for them to morph, they need to go ahead and call out the names of the dinosaur while they
Oh.
hold the morpher up to the air.
Oh.
And then when they summon the Zords, they go ahead and say the name of the dinosaur and then say
Oh.
Dinozord power.
Mm.
You'll get
Yeah.
used to this because you got about 3-ish seasons of this. I say 3-ish because there is another team of Rangers that shows up later, but
Oh.
they're like
Spoilers.
an unofficial. They're like an unofficial team, but they still are an official team. It's really weird. Well, when we get there, you'll probably understand why it's so strange.
Mm. Yeah.
But we won't get there for a while. But like I said,
Okay.
this was a very interesting take. We have the Minotaur, fighting the Zords. Never fought the Megazord, but he gets taken out by the weapons.
Oh. Yeah.
And that is kind of like the standard for most Power Ranger episodes. They're going to be taken out either by by the weapons that combine to make the one big blaster weapon to end it all, or they get taken out by the Megazord.
Yeah.
Either or.
Yeah. That's what I was curious about. Like how many, because they tend to like, I'll just say the word, a lot of things. So they combine their weapons together. I'm curious as to how many more new weapons they'll have and are able to combine them together. So
Spoilers on that.
I feel like there's going to be new ones. I don't know if it's going to be every episode, but I just have a feeling.
Well, just know that for the Mighty Morphin team, these are the standard power weapons.
Yeah.
To which I will say that, these are by far my most favorite weapons throughout all of Power Rangers. And, they're the go-to for me. Though
Can
if
they? I was curious. One last question. Sorry.
Yeah.
So with that weapon, your favorite weapon, I don't know the name again. Sorry. Does it only work once, or can it work more than once? Is that usually just the finishing move, and they only have to do it use it once?
Well, usually for when they combine the weapons, it's supposed to be the final blast.
Okay.
So they don't often do it. That's a lie. They do it often, but they don't fire usually more than once with that.
Okay.
I mean, there's other combinations that they do, and that's going to come up soon, especially for like one of my favorite monsters, which will actually be coming up soon because that's actually one of my most favorite favorite episodes of all time. But
Mhm.
you know, it's really interesting to see these because you get introduced to the first set of weapons that
Yeah.
the Rangers will have in their arsenal.
Mhm.
And personally, um, I love the Power Sword. I
Mm.
think that kind of goes for most people who grew up watching Power Rangers, especially if, following that meme that shows up, it's like when you put a picture of anyone's childhood heroes and then you have that one dude that's like sitting on a sofa in his can of I don't know what soda beer, I don't know, possibly, and he's just like pointing, and then there's a little caption that says I am blank and blank.
Mm.
So in this case I guess it would be like, I was like most kids where I would just point at the show and be like, I'm the red one.
Nice.
Of course, whenever later characters get introduced, sometimes, the things change over the years.
Mhm.
For me, it kind of went from, yeah, red will always be, near and dear to my heart, but
Yeah.
my favorite may have switched over to the Black Ranger a bit, which is,
Mm.
which is actually kind of funny because Zack's weapon, the Power Axe, is one of my most favorite weapons after the
Oh,
Power Sword.
I was literally gonna say what my favorite one was, and it was gonna be the axe, because I don't know what, but I do like the sword. Don't get me wrong, it's kind of similar. It's not similar to samurai sword, but it reminds me of like a modern day Lord of the Rings sword, like that kind of style.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, this is cool. I like the designs that were on it, and it's a really big, thick sword. So that's like, oh, that's cool.
Well,
But for me, I like the axe because it's just my mind again went to Lord of the Rings, and then I just thought of just all the really cool axes that all the characters had whenever they had just a giant. I don't know. I like big axes because they're really cool. So I think that was my favorite.
yeah. Though of course, I think you saw what happens when they put the weapons together. Zack's axe uh, doubles as a gun. So
Oh yeah, that's cool.
uh, the thing about the power axe is, yeah, it doubles as a gun, and it's actually kind of funny that you think about it. That he's holding a gun and he's swinging that thing around by the barrel. So he's going to be
Yeah,
whacking everybody with the butt of the gun.
yeah. It's kind of interesting though. I also saw that each of the weapons were similar to their what are they called again? They're dinosaurs.
They're
I'll say that.
Zords.
They're Zords. So each one was kind of like represented their Zords. Did you notice that? Or is
Uh,
that just me?
yeah, I kind of realize that.
Yeah, with like the bow and arrow and then the sword and then the axe especially reminded me of I don't know. Especially his sword, so that's what I kind of was seeing similarities. I always look for like similarities when I'm looking at, especially at this kind of a show. I'm like, for example, their clothes match what color Power Ranger they are, that
Which
kind
is
of thing. So
actually a very interesting thing to talk about, considering
yeah,
later on we're going to be finding out how, everybody in Angel Grove does not know who the Power Rangers are, and yet here comes this group of brightly dressed kids
yep,
walking around in the same colors
yeah,
as the Power Rangers, always
yeah.
trying to do something good in town, and they'll be like, the Power Rangers? I don't know them. I've never seen them before. Who are these Power Rangers? They sound like swell people.
God, yeah, yeah. It's kind of like I think it's for I think the purpose is that they want the audiences just to see and kind of memorize which um, color their favorite ranger is or something like that. So they just illustrate that with their normal day clothes.
Yeah, that's actually a common thing among Power Rangers. Um, they will they actually have people. Well, the actors will dress in the color that they are going to be, which is actually kind of funny because for the auditions, that's when they were doing the casting call. That is actually what is one of the
Requirement.
requirements. You wear the color that you're going to audition for,
Mm. Yeah, that
and
makes sense.
it makes a lot of sense. And so
Hmm.
it's really funny that we do that, and I didn't realize it at the time, but that the Power Rangers kind of influenced my wardrobe a bit when I was younger.
Nice.
Look, when I was young, I loved the color red, and so sometimes I tried to wear the color red, but um,
Yeah.
parents, parents exist, so my mom was
Yeah.
not gonna let me go out wearing all red. She was gonna be like, "No, you can watch the Power Rangers. You can't be a Power Ranger and dress up all in red. That's too much on the eyes."
Nice. That's another thing. You don't see parents in the Power Rangers. You just see them as like they seem very independent, you know. They're very mature and like dependent in that way. You don't see I mean, you saw the teacher, like the
The principal.
principal, but that's like the only adult that you've really seen, like I should say human adult.
Ah, you pulled that card. It's like, well, technically we got like a couple adults. We got
Yeah.
Rita, we got Zordon, the principal.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could
Yeah.
count Alpha too, but
Yeah.
he's not really a person. He's a robot.
Yeah. There's adult figures, but there's no you don't see their parents, like the Rangers' parents. Not yet, probably. Maybe you'll see it a little bit later.
We'll see. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. This was really fun to do. Uh, it's fun doing this kind of stuff, and it's really interesting to see how well the editing team was on this. I don't know if you noticed when Kimberly and Trini were fighting.
Mhm.
We went through like 3 different backgrounds. That was
Oh.
something I was paying attention to. If you look at it, first was that grassy, rocky area that you see the putties are jumping from, and of course, that's where the actors are. But then once you go into the morph scenes, you see them go from like a place with trees and a stone wall, which was nowhere near where they were originally, to fighting in uh, a sandy area, to fighting some random place elsewhere in who knows where. Like, it was a paved area, so that much I know. So props to the editing team on
Yeah.
that.
It's kind of
Yikes.
yeah, I'm actually like looking over um what you're talking about just now. But yeah, I thought because they have this kind of like how they transition between scenes, they do this big flip in the air. If
Yes.
you've noticed that, and then they get to a different part. So I think that's how they kind of present them as traveling in a way from scene to scene,
I mean,
or like from that moment.
technically, the Rangers get around by teleporting. We see that whenever they do, those weird colors in that purple background and whatever. That usually shows
But
that they're
yeah, when they
teleporting.
yeah.
But I feel like most of the times, whenever you see the putties do that, that's just so it can switch to a wider area, and
Yeah.
the audience isn't paying attention, and shows that they're going to a wider area for for the fighting to begin.
Yeah, I guess I see what you mean now. Now I'm looking at it. I thought it was because they like ran from the original site and then they went to like a more green area of the same area because they also switched back to the red and blue ranger scene, and that's with a bunch of rocks and there's a wall and there's all that going on.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be a staple in most Power Rangers series. There's always gonna be a fight in some kind of quarry, and it's just big, nice, rocky area, and that's where the Rangers will always fight. It's always gonna end in a quarry somewhere.
Never in the city
Uh,
or like in a place.
it may start in the city, but it's gonna end up in a quarry, which makes a lot of sense. Filming wise, why shut off certain spots in a town or city when you can just go to an empty quarry and you don't have to worry about random people accidentally wandering onto the set.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, usually don't they just like block off the area until they're done shooting?
Joke's on you, I'm not gonna listen to a sign.
Oh. That'll be fun though. Now I'm just picturing that. They're all like fighting and then this person is just like eating an apple on the side and like, oh, what's going on?
Well, I'm pretty sure that it's gonna be a wider area. Not like I'd actually try to wander onto a set by accident or on purposely sneak into one. I'm more professional than that.
Oh yeah.
Come on. I'm gonna try to get onto that set legitimately. One day.
One day. Just like purposefully be an extra.
Heck yeah, I'll be an extra. I'll fly to New Zealand to be an extra.
Are they shooting in New Zealand now, or
yeah, in the newer series, New Zealand is actually where they do a lot of the filming.
That's fun.
Is what I've heard. So.
Oh.
And with that being said, that was teamwork. And we will continue on to go into the next one. That was a pressing engagement, episode 4 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I definitely gotta say, this is one of the more outlandish things. I don't know about you, but I feel like doing 1,010 reps of anything kind of sounds like death.
It doesn't. I, in my honest opinion, like, what? How old are these guys? They're in high school, right?
They're high schoolers. Don't know what year they are, but they're high schoolers.
I'm like, do you know any high schoolers that can bench and push 1,010?
Doing 1,010 of
just reps.
Not that I'm aware of, but this is one of the more outlandish things,
I'm just saying, like, I couldn't even imagine doing 10 of something like that, like 50 at the most. That would be crazy for me.
I don't know, it was really weird because I don't know exactly what the weight was on top of that bar.
Yeah. How impressive that was. He looks strong, so I feel like it probably was. If it was, real, it would probably be a lot. Who knows? Huh. The actor might have really used real weights.
Questions for Austin St. John one day. When I get to meet him in person, I will ask about this specific moment.
Were they real? How heavy were they? Right.
Were those weights real, and how heavy were the weights? Because, that looked like he had 6 plates on each side. But I don't know the exact weight. I don't know the exact, you can never tell because certain plates...
That's a lot.
Certain plates, are a different size, but there may be a certain weight, it all depends on like what kind of on what you know whatever brand makes the weight, because they kind
Yeah.
of they're shaped differently. But I
Hmm.
gotta say that's probably one of the more outlandish things I've ever seen in a show that has to do with space witches and aliens fighting, you know, teenagers in spandex piloting metal dinosaurs.
It was definitely kind of interesting how they, for just the storyline for this episode, they like tied him, like everything going on like with his team, and he was getting little fed up with them because he was trying to, beat his record, and they're all distracting him. And then they kind of tied that over again with teamwork. I think Power Rangers, from the first couple episodes, like the main message is just teamwork.
Well, these are the Power Rangers, not the Power
Yeah,
Ranger. So,
true.
the Power Rangers are almost always seen as a team. In fact, that's
Yeah.
actually one of the things that I would love to do one day. Be in a Ranger team, and we just go throughout this go throughout the city. That would be a wonderful thing to do. I saw that on a YouTube stuff. They actually got a shout out on a train. They're like, a conductor is like, "Yeah, we're doing this. This is our route. This is our route." And I think in train car number 6, the Power Rangers just got on. uh,
Nice.
so that just sounds like a lot of fun. But yeah, this one was definitely um, a strange one because this one was a Jason focused episode.
Mm.
Uh, Definitely, I can see a lot of frustration for Jason to be, wanting to do his best and trying to do a record, but whether people lose count, which is always a frustrating thing if somebody's supposed to be keeping count for you and then they lose count, like how Ernie did,
Yeah.
or sometimes a mess, or somebody's just doing
Not
something
like.
to the side, like how Kimberly was. She was just blowing bubbles with her bubble gum. And then, of course, something happens where she ends up blowing a giant bubble gum that, for some reason, when they cut away, it turned into a balloon.
Yep.
I
That
caught
was
that.
funny.
I caught that. That
I
was
was
a
like,
balloon.
that, that was a that was so nice. It was just the whole like her like right next to him, blowing this bubble, and then first I don't get this gym. This gym is so confusing to me.
It's a
First of
youth
all, I'm
center.
not gonna go into that. It's a youth center, but it's like gymnastics, and it's like you can have a shake, and it's like basically high schooling, like just everything high schoolers into in one building. And he's like skateboarding in there for some reason because no rule. And then he just like runs into her, and the bubble like is in their face, and my head is like, what actually is that on their face? Like what what did the prop manager or the prop person in charge of the props, like where did they come to that conclusion? Like what was that on their face?
Yeah, it was bubblegum.
Because they was that actual bubblegum, or
I
was
hope
that
not,
like
because
some
that
other?
just sounds a little gross to be blowing a bubble and then popping it on your face. But either
I
way,
wanted to know so bad what that was.
uh, questions to
That
ask.
was actually really funny.
Questions to ask Amy Jo Johnson and Walter Jones. When
Like,
we go to a
what
Power
was that? Was that
Morphicon, we need and we see the original cast. These are questions to ask them.
this question, especially to me, is very important. I just need to know, as
Yes,
someone who's very interested in props.
straight up. Austin St. Paul. I have a question. How heavy were those weights in this episode? Were they real weights, and how heavy was that? And then this question goes to Amy and Walter. Uh, what did they use to go ahead and pop on your face? Did they actually make you blow a bubble and then have you pop that bubblegum bubble on your face.
Is that real bubblegum on your face?
If it was,
Unless
then that
to
was
me,
probably the worst thing to get out of your face.
well, they managed to get it off in like I don't know, like the scene cut, and then they had it all off her face.
Yeah.
The next scene, of course, that was different take, but you know.
It's kind of weird that they went ahead and said that it was a school record for who knows how long, because, you know, they're like, oh, this is going to be the first record breaker in a while. And I'm like, well, who set this up? And then we find out it's Bulk.
Mm.
You know, surprising. You know, it's surprising to see that. But I also find it really funny that, you know, Bulk and Skull always end up getting the butt end of a joke somewhere. You know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, Bulk just straight up, you know, bear hugs Jason and starts going, you know, I hold the record, you ain't gonna beat my record. And then next thing you know, Jason ends up tickling him, and then Bulk rips his pants.
Okay.
And then Skull rips his pants off.
I think like they always, from what I've seen so far, they start a fight and then they just lose. They just constantly are losing because they're kind of like, you know, the Power Rangers fight, you know, against those mythical creatures, but then like the real life bully they fight against is him, and they always win in the end. And so I was kind of like, sometimes I feel bad for him. I'm like, oh god, he's just constantly like getting beat one way or the other.
Well, I think that was one of the things, you know,
of his character.
I think that's also another thing, you know, trying to go ahead and show that, you know, being a bully is bad.
Yeah.
And that is a straight up message, you know. For Bulk and Skull, yeah, they're bullies, but you know, you see them get instant payback whenever they try to do something mean or bad.
Yeah.
That doesn't always happen in real life, but
you
know, that's unfortunate that it doesn't. That people don't learn from their mistakes, but you know, Bulk and Skull will continue to be Bulk and Skull, and we love them for it. But one of the things that I really, really enjoyed...
You just want to see some humility.
Yeah. But one of the things I really wanted to enjoy about was... this is where we got an introduction between... not only not just one, but two monsters, actually. I don't know if you noticed this, but when the putties attacked, there were two different kinds of putties. You know, one were the light gray ones, and then you saw a much darker gray, almost black putty that the others were fighting. That was actually something that I read when I was looking up some things about the Sentai, that the golems, as they're called, instead of putty patrollers, they came in two variants. The ones that were more darker and more lumpy and kind of looked like they had a little bit more, you know, more rock on them. Those are supposed to be putty generals, or golem generals, while the lighter gray ones were supposed to be the foot soldiers. So it's really interesting when you see them kind of
I had no idea.
Well, you wouldn't really know unless you tried to find out about this stuff for the Sentai.
Yeah.
But that was the thing. And then, of course, you know, there's King Sphinx himself, which was very... Honestly, I like his design. You know, he's a giant lion with, you know, with wings. I mean, I know he's supposed to be a Sphinx, but, you know, something about a lion with wings carrying a hook. Or... Oh, sorry. It's really late. But, you know, something about it.
It's like...
Yeah, 2:30. But something about a lion carrying around a giant wooden, I don't know, what do you call those things? A hook, or those things that a crook or something. I don't know.
The
It's,
wait, like a hook, like a cane. It's not like a cane.
I guess, okay,
Staff
we'll call it a cane.
or
But
staff.
the thing is the fact that he's wielding that and he shoots fireballs from his head and from the staff is pretty darn cool.
Yeah, I have a question though. Like, so it seems that when she throws her staff down, hits the ground, you get that mm, like effect, and then they become huge, right?
Yes.
The the monster becomes huge. Is she the one? Do they get their powers from her power because she
Well,
rose them, or is that their own power?
in the Sentai, she basically is the creator of all the monsters, yes. Um, but in this version, she kind of creates them, or she has them in her army. It's really hard to determine which. But whenever the
Mm.
monsters grow, that is always because of Rita's magic. Whenever she does her, you know, her over the top Olympian javelin throw with her magic wand.
Yeah.
I mean, dang, that's quite the arm. You're throwing it from the moon and it's going all the way down to Earth.
She's done this like consistently. I shouldn't say constantly, consistently. Um, whenever this happens, I was like, wait, how does she get it back if she keeps throwing it at the Earth? But find a way.
Magic.
Magic, right?
Either
Magic.
that or
That's
her
all.
castle is full of them. Which I would just love to go ahead and see that, where she's like, okay, I lost another magic wand. Time to go down to the wand closet and get another one.
Well, like one time I would want to see. I don't know if this is in an actual episode, but like her staff is still there, and the monsters that she probably did intentionally like want to create just rise from the ground all of a sudden, and then there's like an invasion. I don't know. Like I want to see something where someone either steals her staff, or just chaos happens because her staff is still on Earth. Something like that. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe we'll get that one day. Hey, Boom Comics, if you ever come across this, just a suggestion. But yeah, definitely. I still gotta say though that one of the biggest questions that still comes to mind is, why was it that Zordon and Alpha could find Jason, but couldn't teleport the Rangers there? Instead, they could only teleport their power crystals.
I
I mean,
think they wanted him to use the power crystals because they wanted to introduce the power crystals.
well, that's a problem because the power crystals were introduced in the first episode.
Oh, they were.
Remember when they got in the Zords?
Oh
Anytime
yeah,
they get
no.
in the Zords, they summon the power crystals. That's how they power up the Zords.
Oh, but this episode probably shows that they can summon them anywhere they are, and the rest of the Power Rangers can transport to that person. Maybe that was the purpose of it.
I don't know. It's a really weird thing with the writing on this one. Like, I understand the reason why they had to write some kind of explanation for it, because the footage itself, this is from the episode. This is the Sentai episode where the Zords were actually introduced for the first time.
Mm.
So, this is the footage of them actually getting to use the power crystals for the first time, but because the way it was written in America, The Rangers had access to the power crystals from episode 1 because the Zords were introduced in episode 1.
Hmm.
To this day, I still don't understand why we did that, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And, not that I have anything against it, I just kind of wish it made a little bit more sense.
Yeah. I also like saw the change in the scene, but it was not as subtle this time, or maybe it was, but where they started off in like some kind of outdoor, it looked like an outdoor amphitheater, and then all of a sudden they were in some place with a bunch of rubble. And I was like, how did they get from there to there? Like, where was that
I have no
track?
idea. I've yet to understand that. It would have made much more sense if they said King Sphinx sent him to another dimension.
Yeah, like, why didn't they just do that? And then that would have been a smoother, I don't know. It would have been a lot better writing
I
and
don't know. I
directing.
guess maybe that was why they had the little glowing effects when Jason and King Sphinx jumped up. You saw that red light hit them, and then they end up in the quarry again. Like I said in the previous episode, quarries will become a ranger's best friend, or their next hangout. Besides, the juice bar.
Yeah. For me, I just like, I don't know. I want to like talk to the directors and see what their reasons were for, or the editors. It's not like it matters, but I just want to know why they kept choosing that place
Have
and
fun
why they
speaking in
didn't just start
Japanese.
there. Oh
You
yeah, I
gotta
can't do that.
remember, a lot of the suit footages are the original Sentai, so you need to ask the people who made the Super Sentai
Mm,
why they chose to do a quarry. At this
yeah.
point, I think it's like a staple that it needs to be in a quarry because if I remember correctly, some of the newer series are actually making their own scenes, so we are not relying heavily on Sentai footage. But I could be wrong on that.
Okay.
But yeah, it was really nice. Everybody came together. You know, it was great to see the team pull together, and you see the tank actually, the Dino Tanker actually uh, took a little bit more of a spotlight this time around. We normally don't see the Dino Tanker stay in battle too often. It's just that's the first scene they go to, and then they switch over to battle mode almost right away. So it's really nice when you get to see the tank mode get incorporated into battle.
Yeah.
Which I actually have to say, I think if you take a closer look during that fight, if you notice when they're doing the overhead shot, when
Hmm.
Jason is saying that they're switching to tank mode, um, the lights in front of him, like, when he grabs those two spots on top of the control panel, it lights up the dinosaur, then it lights up the Power Ranger, and then it connects to the Zord or whatever,
Hmm.
or the Zord symbol. Um, if you look closely on the control panel in the Megazord, Jason is not. Well, Jason is in front of what's supposed to be his, but it's all green, and Jason's
Mm.
red. So, foreshadow? Maybe? Or was that just the editors using a different scene and we weren't paying attention?
Mm.
Who knows? But then,
Yeah, definitely. I feel like every director, or some directors, I should say, kind of intentionally put things in a scene that hint at the future.
hmm,
Kind of like how like I think Pixar does this all the time, as an example, where they have like little bits, little hints. Nobody knows that they're hints until, much later.
Yeah. Don't worry,
But
we got those theory people on it. They'll hunt everything down.
yeah. So I'm like, there could have been a couple of those in this one, like when you pointed that out. Maybe there's a hint there, but who knows?
Who knows? We'll come across our green friend one day. One day soon, possibly. But yeah. So how did you feel about this episode? Or like,
Um,
what are your thoughts so far?
uh, for me, it's like I understand the message that they're getting across to everyone is teamwork. You need to defeat something big, and it doesn't have to be in life, but to defeat something big, you need a team to be together and work and fight and all that all that.
Even if
But
it's in a personal one, just having them
yeah,
be there to support you.
yeah. But at the same time, I really was hoping for that individuality. I was hoping that, he would be fine. He could still kick butt by himself, that he didn't always need his team with him to succeed. And that's kind of what I was disappointed about a little bit, because I kind of wanted to see him do really well on his own. And his team would just amplify it, encourage it. Like, it would be better, but it doesn't mean that he can't fight on his own.
Yeah.
And he was fighting on his own for a bit, but I wanted to see him say, okay, I got this, and then realize that, some things are overwhelming. So, I don't know. That's me.
Well, he was being chased around for quite a bit of the fight. He was getting handled.
Yeah.
But so it's a funny thing that you mentioned that. A little funny story based on the footage, because the story for the original Sentai was actually much different. So for the King Sphinx in the Sentai, or as he's known as Bandora Sphinx, he actually starts off in a human form where he tests people with a riddle, and if you get it wrong, he transforms into the Sphinx, and then with his wings he blows you away and turns you into a tree, or he merges you with a tree in some secret forest where you're hidden away for the rest of your life. And so,
Oh, wow.
actually, the funny thing was that for the Zyurangers, everyone except the Red Ranger got spirited away into that magical forest. And it was because they actually did not get along. They weren't working as a team. So it was actually up to the Red Ranger to figure out how to rescue his team and get them to work together. And this was how, he came across the spirit of the giant guardian known as Daijujin, or the Megazord as we know it. And the Megazord sent him a vision showing what would happen to the Earth if his team did not get their act together and start working as a team.
Wow.
And so, yeah, he found the power crystals that was supposed to help them work together on their teamwork, because, the only way for them to truly be a team is if they come together to unite in their mission. And so, he found the crystals, and then with the power of the crystals, because those help power not only the Zords but power up the Rangers as well, it gave the other Zyurangers enough energy to break from the to break their bond from the tree and be sent back to where the red Zyuranger was. Oops. So
That makes way more sense.
yeah.
I'm gonna say, like, that has a better story, that has a better development. Because this one, it felt rushed and it felt like it was missing some things. Like, I don't know, I didn't have that nostalgia. Like, you might have this nostalgia feel, but for me, the story you just told me, I would feel more nostalgic with because it had more, like, a deeper meaning than, for example, oh, he was just lifting weights and then he got frustrated with his friends.
Well, you need to
But
remember that I only came across the Sentai a little bit later in life. It wasn't until I actually started college when
uh,
I discovered that Sentai was a thing. Like, I
yeah,
knew it existed, I just never actually saw it until college, so.
yeah,
But
but
yeah,
yeah,
the writing will always differ. American writing and Japanese writing is going to be different. And,
yeah.
I can appreciate each story for what it is.
Hmm.
You're not going to convince me that a giant robot is somehow magical. You're not. You're not going to convince me. But I do enjoy the fact that Zyuranger was definitely more magical than how Power Rangers is, which is science fiction and magic. I don't know
Yeah,
how they did it, but they managed to make it work because, look how many years later Power Rangers is still a thing.
yeah,
So they're doing something right.
that is true.
But I cannot wait for the next session when we do um the next two episodes. This next two episodes will be a different drum and food fight. Oh, food fight is gonna be a wonderful thing. That was something I actually watched a lot as a kid because I had the VHS. But
Hmm.
that's a story for another episode. So for now, this has been Mighty Morphin Power Rangers recap. I really need to stick with the name. And yeah, I'm Chris, and this is Kelly.
This is Kelly. I will introduce yeah, cool.
We'll work on this, I promise. And we will
Yeah.
catch you all in the next one. Bye.
Bye.